Welcome back to another BJC past paper review. Today we're about to review a general science paper. We're going to review a paper 1, and this is from the year 2020. Before I start this examination, please remember to always write your school number. Also write your candidate number, your initials, and your surname. Now let's dive into the first question. And the first question read, which of these should not be worn in a laboratory? And here we have an apron. And an apron is a safety device that will protect your clothes from chemical spills. Here we have a glove, and the glove is also important to protect your hands. And we have a goggles right here, a pair of goggles. And we have a chain. A chain is dangerous because a chain could, especially if you're bending over to measure something, the chain could actually knock over chemicals or even enter the beaker or test tube, and then will eventually bring back chemicals onto your clothes. So it can be a risky piece of jewelry. So D is your correct answer. It should not be worn in a laboratory. Question number 2 is which scientific apparatus measures force? But before I go into the answer, let us name these apparatus. And so in option A, we have here a anemometer. There's an anemometer. All right. All right, so that's the instrument there, and it is used to measure wind speed and also wind direction. In option B, we have a measuring cylinder. This is a measuring cylinder. I'll put it right here. This is a measuring cylinder, or otherwise called a graduated cylinder. All right, so in option C, we have what they call a spring balance. So this is a spring balance. And a spring balance is used to measure weight. So this is a spring balance used to measure weight. And here we have a thermometer, which is option D. So option D is a thermometer. All right, and a thermometer is used to measure temperature, or hot or cold something is. So our answer here will be a spring balance. A measuring cylinder is used to measure the volume of liquids. Let's go to question number 3. It said, to which branch of science does biology belong? And first and foremost, to start this question, is that biology is the study of living things, and so therefore it belongs to life science. Question number 4 reads, which of the following is not a part of the animal kingdom? Amphibians, they are. Crustacean, yes. Virus are not true living cells, so they're not a part of the animal kingdom. In fact, it is not even animal, right? It's just a single cell, and it's not a true cell, so it's not a true living thing. All right, so that will be your correct answer there. Number 5, it said, what do we call the amount of space occupied by matter? And this is called volume. So volume is the space occupied by matter or any object. Number 6, it said, which diagram shows the larval form of the queen conch? And a point to note that the larval stage of a queen conch is called a veliger. So I'm going to put that name right there. And this is option C. So the larva of a queen conch or the conch is called a veliger. Okay. So C will be your correct choice. All right, for number 7, it's a thick dark oil layer covers the sea above a coral reef. What changes would be most destructive to the organisms below? And A is saying to decrease in carbon dioxide and light, and B is saying decrease in carbon dioxide and oxygen, and C is saying decrease in oxygen and light. Oxygen will be very destructive because most of the organisms on the coral reef, we require oxygen for respiration, and the zooxanthellae within the coral polyps also need light to photosynthesize, and also other plant-like organisms that are found on the coral reef, such as algae, useful algae. All right, so C is the correct answer there, number 8. And for question number 8, it said, which section of a report of an experiment would evaluate the observation? And so when you talk about evaluating observation, you're going to make predictions, you're going to kind of conclude something, all right? And so C, which is conclusion, will be your correct choice. And number 9 is which organism is a crustacean. And before I go into that, I just want to point out something real quick for you right now, is that all of these organisms, they are called arthropods. I'm going to put it right there. So these are arthropods. All right, so they're arthropods. And the B is an insect. So I'm put it right here, insect. Okay, and the crab is definitely the crustacean. So this is crustacean. And a cockroach is also an insect. And the millipede is what they call a diplopoda. So this belongs to diplopoda. Let me put it right here. So, all right, so it's a diplopod. All right, let's say diplopod. So the diplopod belongs to the class of diplopoda. All right, so definitely option B is the correct answer right there. The crab is the crustacean. Next question, number 10. It said, which structure gives plant cell their shape? And this is definitely the cell wall. All right, remember the cell membrane will allow things to go in and out of the cell. The nucleus is what controls the cell, and the vacuole will store water, will store waste, and also store food. Okay, so let's go to question number 11. And question number 11 is said, what is the agent of pollination of the maize flower? And the maize flower, just to point this out, is called the corn. So maize is corn. So if, just in case you see this again, you know, once you talk about maize, you're talking about what? Corn, okay? All right. And so the agent of pollination, that means it will carry pollen from the anther to the stigma, and this is done by wind. And also you can also note that the corn is a monocotyledon, okay? And also the flower, they're not bright, so insect will not be attracted to those flowers. They're not brightly colored. All right, for question number 12, here it shows that the diagram shows a plant cell. There's a plant cell. What we're going to do is label these. Let's label these first. We're going to the question and answering. So on the outermost part of a plant cell, you find a cell wall. So that's a cell wall right there. And then Q, which is the next layer in, that is a cell membrane, or you call it plasma membrane. This is cell membrane or plasma membrane. Now R is what they call a vacuole. Remember, the vacuole stores water, right? Remember, the cell wall maintains the shape of the plant cell. The cell membrane controls what go in and coming out. The vacuole stores water, waste, and food. These circular structures, and these are called, they are organelles. So these circular organelles here, they are starch grains. I'm going to say they are starch grains. Okay. All right. If they were elongated, then we could say they are the mitochondria, but because of their circular shape, we're going to say that they are starch grain. All right. This T will be the nucleus. All right. And then U now will be, if you notice, these are now elongated. So these we'll call them the chloroplast. All right. And remember, the chloroplast, they're ovally shaped, and there are many of them inside of the plant cell as well. Now, this partner's question actually states which two structures are found only in a plant cell. And so in a plant cell, you will find a cell wall. Animal cells do not have cell wall. All other cells have cell membrane. All cells have vacuole. Starch grains are not in animal cells, so they're only in plant cells. So we have PS. Nucleus will be found in most cells except the red blood cells. So all of the cells except red blood cell will have nucleus. Chloroplasts are only found in plant cell as well. So we have three structures to think about right here: P, S, and U. Okay, so let's see which option contains P, S, U. All right, and so here we have P and Q, which is not. So we say P, S, and U. Okay, so B could be our option right here because there is no S stated in this in any of these options. So our best answer right here is B, contain P and U, and P is the cell wall. Let's go back to it a little bit. So P is the cell wall and U is the chloroplast. Okay, awesome. Number 13 is which crop should a farmer plant in a nitrogen poor soil? And if the soil is lacking nitrogen, therefore you could plant a nice type of plant there which is called legumes. And so beans and peas belong to the leguminous group. And legumes, they have what are called nodules on their roots that contain nitrogen fixing bacteria. And the nitrogen fixing bacteria will provide nitrogen or nitrates to the plant. Okay? Or you can say nitrogen in the form of nitrates. So C is our correct answer. All right, so let's now jump to the next question, which is question number 14. And for question number 14, so the food chain shows the numbers of organisms in a forest. We have acorns, which is 200. We have squirrels, 75. Snakes, 15. And owls, 3. So what is the average number of consumers in the forest? So here we're looking for consumers. Let me just highlight that. The number of consumers. So I'm going to ask you a question. And motherfucker, you can think about it. Which of these organisms are classified as consumers? Remember, consumers, they are eating other organisms. So the acorn is not a consumer. It is the producer. So the average consumer will only include from the squirrel, the snake, and the owl. So we are talking about these 3 organisms. So please pay attention to the words they use in the questions, because sometimes we miss these words and we end up doing the wrong thing. So please be careful with that. And so here now 75 plus 15, that is 90. 90 plus 3 is 93. So 93 divided by 3, because only 3 organisms, will equal to 31. And so 31 is our correct answer. Okay, again, please remember, looking for consumers, not the entire organisms. Okay, so please be careful with the words they use in the questions. I know sometimes you may be rushing and you're anxious to finish, but please do not do that. Read through the questions really carefully. All right, let's now go to question number 15. And the question number 15 is the diagram shows a longitudinal section of a maize grain. Remember what maize is again? Is corn, which part has stored energy used for growth during germination. So in other words, which part of the seed will store energy? And I'm going to tell you that in a bit. But first, you know I'm going to label all this diagram first, right? So at least you know the parts, just in case you need them. All right, so here we call this piece here, the bigger part of the corn is called the endosperm. I'm going to tell you something about endosperm shortly. So you have the endosperm, which is B. C is what they call a cotyledon. Okay, so I'm going to make sure to point this out as soon as I finish labeling. And right here, which is D, is called the embryo. And the embryo is made up of 2 things. So I'm going to put it right here, right? So embryo. And A is the seed coat. So I'm going to put the seed coat right here. Okay. All right, so I'm going to point out something real quick. In the embryo is where the growth taking place. All right, so I'm going to kind of label the embryo section right here. I want to put here, let me put this in a motherfucker different color. So this portion right here, the top part of the embryo, all right, it is called the plumule. And that is part will form the shoot, okay? That's the plumule. And the bottom portion of the embryo, which will form, this part will form the root, and this is called a radicle, radicle forms root, and plumule forms shoot, which is the leaves and stems and so on. All right, so now we have that. Now let's point out what I'm talking about now. All right, and so when you're thinking about the endosperm in a corn is a monocotyledon. A matter of fact, let me tell you that corn is a monocotyledon. In monocotyledon, the endosperm is what is storing the food. In other words, it's storing the energy or the food for energy. In dicotyledon, it's different. For dicotyledon, it is the cotyledon that stores the food. Okay, so I want to know that difference. So again, for monocotyledon, the endosperm is what stores the food. But in dicotyledon, it is the cotyledon that stores the food. So please make note of the difference right there. And so for this question here, B will be your answer. If this was a peas or a red bean maybe, or a dicotyledonous seed, then the cotyledon would have been the answer. Okay, so bear that in mind just in case you may need it again for another question. Now for question number 16, right? It said, what is the name of the process which describes how energy is released from food in all living organisms? And all living organisms will release energy by the process of respiration. And please remember that there are two types of respiration. You have aerobic. For example, us as human beings, we respire aerobically and we require what? Oxygen. But other organisms such as yeast or fungi, some fungi, they will respire anaerobically and they are respiring without oxygen. Okay, so aerobic is with oxygen and anaerobic is without oxygen. All right, so I could put the words here for you real quick. All right, so aerobic is respiration with oxygen. So this requires oxygen. So this is with oxygen. And we also have what they call anaerobic. So anaerobic. And this is without oxygen. No oxygen is required. Okay. All right, great. Now for question number 17, it said which substance is not needed for germination? And so germination, for seed to germination, there's no need for soil because you can use a tissue paper, anything that is anywhere that is moist really. All right, the seed will germinate. Matter of fact, some seeds could even germinate in the fruit itself. Okay, but oxygen is needed. The right or suitable temperature is needed. Water is also needed. All right, and please note for germination, there's no need for sunlight and there's no need for carbon dioxide. Why? Because the seed or the germinating seed or the young plant coming from the seed will get the nutrients and all the substance needed from the seed itself. For example, in monocot, we talk about the endosperm. We get the food needed from the endosperm. For dicotyledon, they get it from the cotyledon, right? So not until the plant or the young plant actually develop leaf, then the plant will start to photosynthesize and make its own food. But during germination, there's no need for light. There's no need for carbon dioxide. Question number 18. It said, in which form is nitrogen absorbed by plants? And plants absorb nitrogen in the form of nitrates. Okay, so plants can only use nitrogen in the form of nitrates. All right, question number 19. It said, what form of energy comes from the sun? And this one is an easy one for us. Is solar energy comes from the sun. Geothermal energy comes from the earth. Sound energy comes from vibration, and tidal energy will come from waves, water waves to be specific. Number 20, and we are halfway through. It said, which of the following can be used to test for the presence of fats? And so, matter of fact, let me quickly tell you all of these first before I even give you the answer. All right, I could give you, all right, fat is used to test for ethanol, which is alcohol, is used to test for fats. What I'm going to do is to give you a list right here. And so bendic solution, I'm going to see if all of them could fit. I'm going to change the font size here to make it a little bit better so it could fit easier. All right, so bendic solution is used to test for sugar, okay? So bendic solution tests for sugar. Just to make a note of that. All right. Burette solution is used to test for proteins. They use burette solution to test for proteins. And what is also important is for you to know the color changes as well. For Benedict's is a blue solution. If sugar is present, it will turn to red, orange, or brown. Burette is also blue. If protein is present, it will turn to purple or violet. Ethanol, matter of fact, let me say ethanol plus water, because the test for fats, you'll use ethanol, but you also add water to it. All right, I'm not able to put it there. Let me put it on this side over here for you, okay? So ethanol, which is alcohol, so ethanol or alcohol is okay. So ethanol is a form of alcohol. All right, and it's used to test. A matter of fact, you have to add water to it, not directly to the alcohol. You put alcohol first on the food, shake up the food, then you put a few drops of water, and then you see. If you see cloudiness or milky white, then you know that fat is present. So it is ethanol or alcohol plus water, and that is used to test for what? Fats. Okay. Now iodine. And matter of fact, before I go to iodine, ethanol and water, they are colorless solutions. They are colorless mixtures. All right. So water by itself is not a solution, by the way. Okay. So they are colorless liquids. All right. So iodine solution, it is a yellowish brown substance, or you could say brown or yellowish. And if it is used to test for starch, and if starch is present, then it will be blue-black. Okay, it will be blue-black or black. Okay, just to point that out. Question number 21. Yes, so the diagram shows a queen conch. You have the spine, you have the egg groove, you have the eye, you have the foot, you have the lip. It said which two parts are used to determine the age of the conch? And so the answer here will be C, because it must have a well-developed lip or a well-flared lip, and also a well-developed spine. So the lip should be thick and flared, like open up, okay? Very thick lip, very flared lip, and the spine should be well-developed. So if the spine is, the spikes are very close together and very small, that means it's a very, it's juvenile or it's immature, all right? So 22, it said, what is the difference in volume between measuring cylinder R and S? What's the difference between both of them? And so you want to look at the lines here. And so this here, this is 60. This is 60. Not showing so clear. And put it right there for you. Okay, so that's 60. And so the line here, it is halfway up. So you have 61, 62, 63, 64, 65. So this is 65 here. So in R, we have 65. All right, let's put it on the side. Okay, so 65. And for this one here, this is 30. And then we have 35, and then 36, 37, 38, 39. So in beaker S, we have 39. All right, so what we need to do now is to find the difference between these two measuring cylinders. All right, so let's go to the difference now. And the difference is just a subtraction type of calculation. So we're going to subtract here now. We're going to subtract. Oh no, this is 85. This is not 60. This is 85. Let me take this out. That's not 60. This is 85. All right. So yeah, this number is 80. This is 70 at the bottom here. All right. So this is 80. So right there is 80. So that means this line is 85. Okay. 85. All right. Great. So the difference here will be 85 now, right? So 85 minus 39. And this will give us now 46. Okay. So at 46. All right. So great. So our answer there is 46. So let's get into that and answer it. So that option is B. All right. Great. Now question number 23. It said, what is produced when sound waves are reflected from a solid surface? And if sound wave is being reflected, it will cause a phenomenon called echo. So this is called echo. For question number 24, it said, which soil sample absorbs and holds the least amount of water? So when they said hold the least, very important here, it absorbed and holds the least amount of water, the least looking for right here, which means then if you're filtering the soil, that means the one that most water leave from that soil is the one that holding the water the least. And so if you look at the apparatus carefully or the options, you realize that the one that can hold the least water will have to be A, simply because more water will leave the soil. The soil is not able to hold all that water, okay? And B would be the one that holds the most water, right? Because B, if you notice, a very small amount of water that will leave or filter from the soil. Okay, so A is the correct answer there. Now for question number 25, it said, which is not a physical property of matter? And we have color, we have ductility, we have ductile. So when we talk about ductility, we're talking about the ability to draw a metal or a piece of wire, or draw it into a piece of wire to make wire from it, okay? All right, so malleable means it could bending, okay? So again, color, you will see color by looking at it, whether blue, black, red, orange, whatever color is. Ductility, or to be ductile, refers to it can be drawn to make wire or into a wire. Flammability, when you talk about if the substance is flammable, that means for it to burn, it must react with oxygen, right? So it's a chemical reaction. Burning must take place in the presence of what? Oxygen, to produce a new substance. So this here is a chemical change, okay? So this is chemical. It's a chemical reaction. Just make a note of that. Burning is a chemical reaction. So to be flammable is a chemical property. All right, now question number 26 is how many electrons are shown in this atom? And to calculate number of electrons, we look at the shells. And so the first shell here, we have 2 electrons. So I'm going to circle them, 1 right here, our next one right here, and then 4 on the outside. So those are electrons. So in total, there is 6 electrons. Okay, 2 on the inside and 4 on the outside. So C will be our correct answer. Now let's jump to question number 27. And for question number 27, it said, which element in the periodic table is represented in the diagram below? And HG is for mercury. Okay, Hg is for mercury. The symbol for hydrogen is H. The symbol for phosphorus is P. And the symbol for zinc is Zn. Let's go to question number 28. It said, what is the best way to purify water? And we have boiling, we have chlorination, and we have decantation, and we have filtration. So let's quickly explain. What boiling does is it kill microorganisms, right? Chlorination also kills microorganisms. So these two processes are doing the same thing. Decantation is pretty much pouring the water off from the solid or the suspended solid. And D is filtration. You use a filter paper, the liquid will pass through it, the solid remain on the filter paper. So the residue will remain on the filter paper, the filtrate will pass through, which is the water. And so killing the microorganism will be good choices. So A and B are really good choices, but let's see which one is the best one you think may be to purify the water. So let's think this on a wider scale. If you do boiling is just simply applying heat to the water, and will kill the microorganisms there. It is not the most popular method used because the water will evaporate, and you have to have you must have a means to capture the evaporating water, unless you boil it to the point that you have water remaining in your container. So the difference between boiling and chlorination, you're adding chemicals to the water, which is chlorine. And so in thinking about safety for humans, for human drinking, or the safest way for drinking will be boiling, right? Because here you kill the microorganism just as in chlorination, but there is no chemical added to boiling. So I'll choose boiling to be the best option, but both A and B could be correct choices, okay? Because both of them will kill microorganisms. A matter of fact, chlorination is frequently used or widely used to purify water. So first they will distill water, which is a boiling process as well, and then they will chlorinate the water to make it even safer. All right, but I choose A again because of without the use of chemicals. All right, question number 29. Most of our food are preserved from the harmful effects of microorganisms which cause food to spoil, which process kill bacteria in liquid foods such as milk, and this one is called pasteurization. So pasteurization is a very popular method used to purify and preserve milk, okay? All right. So again, you can make note of these other methods of preservatives. They are correct method of preservatives. Canning to put the food in a can. Drying is to remove the moisture from it. And irradiation is to apply radiative radiation throughout this substance to kill or to destroy any microbes, if any are present. All right, so question number 30, and we're almost there. It said, which line diagram shows the correct path taken by a human egg? And first and foremost, you know that eggs are produced by the ovary. So therefore, C and D, they are out. Okay, so we leave with either A or B. And so coming from the ovary, you go into the oviduct, which is also called a fallopian tube, and then into the uterus. All right, and so A is our correct answer right here. Number 31 is into which structure do sperm cells pass when they leave the epididymis? And so when sperm cells leave the epididymis, they go straight into the sperm duct, and the sperm duct is also called a vas deferens. Okay, just to make a point right here, the seminiferous tubule, they are the structures within the testes that actually produce the sperm cells. So I could make a note of that, right? The seminiferous tubule, they are what producing the sperm cells. So these produce sperm cell, okay? All right, so that's where exact point where sperms are produced, and they are located in the testes. As you know, ureter is what from the urinary bladder. So it connect from the kidneys going into the urinary bladder. You should have known that. And then now we have urethra, and urethra is what will take the urine outside of the body. Okay. All right. So definitely vas deferens will be a correct answer right there. All right, so let's now jump to 32. And I said, which row in the table shows the correct information about human reproduction? And so let's go to option A and see what's happening in option A right here. Let's do some. The testes produces egg. Nope, they produce sperm cells. So this is not correct right there. Testes are in male, definitely. Ovaries are in females. That is correct. And ovaries produce estrogen. Absolutely true. So everything right here checks out. Seminal vesicle produce testosterone, not true. Seminal vesicle produce seminal fluid that will mix with sperm cell to form semen. Prostate gland does not produce progesterone. Progesterone are produced in females. So our correct answer here is option B. Let's go to question number 33 of matter of fact. But question number 33 is that which structure is not a part of a male reproductive system. And let's just check if these are in males. Epididymis, yes. Bladder, yes, is in male. Both male and female, a matter of fact. Prostate gland is in males, yes. And scrotum, yes, is in males. But which is not a part of the reproductive system, and it is the bladder. Why? Because the bladder is what will store urine. It is in the excretory system or the urinary system. So bladder belongs to the excretory system or the urinary system. All right, great. So let's go to question number 34. And this one reads now, it said, which surface would provide the least friction when walking? And the smoother the surface is the less friction, because friction now is the force that will create between two surfaces or two objects that is rubbing on each other. So the rougher the surfaces are, is the more friction you will get. Okay, the more smooth it is, less friction. And so a rug will provide a lot of friction for your dry wood is not so bad. Dry smooth tile, that's not too much of friction as well. But when it is wet smooth tile is worse than C. So definitely D is your correct answer. Wet and smooth, not a good combination. That's why you have to be very careful when you're walking on tiles that are wet, because you may slip and hurt yourself. So that's why I normally go like in KFC or Wendy's, and if they're mopping the floor, they put a sign, say slippery, or they may put a sign, be cautious, because the floor is wet. Okay. Now question number 35, it said which organ pipes produce the highest pitch? And the highest pitch here now requires a very narrow tube. So the narrower the tube is higher the pitch. Okay. And so by looking at the diagrams here, you will notice that option A is very long and also wide. So that's the widest one. So the narrowest one is D. So D will be our correct answer. And simply because it is narrow or the smallest space. So narrow and small space, that will give you a high pitch. So I'll put it right here. Narrow, so be narrow, okay, or small space. Those are two things that will produce high pitch. Okay, that means in option A will be the loudest because the space is wider. Okay, and so therefore produce long wavelengths. Okay, but when it is narrow, you produce shorter wavelengths. Okay, and then you end up with higher pitch. Number 36, it said in which diagram would conduction occurs the fastest? And remember that conduction is the method of heat transfer through solids, particularly metals. And so first and foremost, glass are not good conductor of heat, wood is not a good conductor of heat, plastic is not a good conductor of heat, but copper is a good conductor of heat. So therefore, a lot of conduction will take place in the copper. In fact, if you put wax here, the wax will melt faster on the copper rather than the others. Okay, glass, wood, or plastic. All right. Number 37 is which item is a luminous object? And when we talk about luminous object, you're talking about objects that produce their own light. So we have a candle which is burning, it's produced its own light, so it's a luminous object. All the others are illuminous, and so if you think about a mirror, a mirror will only reflect light when light itself pass through the mirror. All right, you can only see the other objects such as the boot and the tree only if light is present. They do not produce their own light. Question number 38. It said here, a mango falls from a tree with a force of 10 Newton and travels a distance of 1.5 meters. How much work is done? And so to calculate work, remember that work here is equal to force times distance. I'll put this, as a matter of fact, let me write it out. Okay, force times distance. And remember now, here we have the force, which is 10 newtons. So we're going to say 10 newtons here. 10 newtons multiplied by 1.5 meters. And so this here will give us here 15 Newton meters, or if you want to put it in joules, remember it also can be placed in joules as well, or 15 joules. Because work and energy, they both measure in what? Joules. Okay, so 1 Newton meter, by looking at this, 1 Newton meter is the same thing as 1 joule. You can make a note of that. 1 Newton meter is the same as 1 joule. So number 38 is our correct, C is our correct answer for number 38. Number 39 is what do we call the opposition of the flow of electrons? In other words, the flow of electron is called current. The flow of electron is called current. So what opposes the flow of current is actually called resistance. Okay, so electron flowing is what is produced electric charge or current. Number 40. Now we said how many calories are there in a chicken sandwich containing 15 grams of protein, 18 grams of carbohydrates, and 3 grams of fats. And this is our last question here. So what we're going to do here is to do some multiplication. So let's go just quickly calculate this. So we're going to say 9 now times 3 because this is fat and only 3 grams of fat. So multiply that by 3. What you'll get here is 9 times 3 is 27. And then we can say 4 here now multiply by, this is carbohydrates, and carbohydrate is 18. So it's going to be 3 multiplied by 18, multiplied by 18. And 4 multiplied by 18, I should say. So 4 multiplied by 18, that is now 72. Okay. And the next one here is 4. This is proteins, and proteins is 15. So we're going to say 4 times 15. Let's multiply 4 by 15. And what we'll get here is 60. All right. And the sum of all of these numbers, so 27 plus 72 plus 60, give us a total of 159. Okay. So 159 is our correct answer. So option C is our correct answer. All right. Great. And so we're at the end of this review. Again, look out for more reviews. Until next time, keep safe, do well on the examination.